In this video, we're going to talk about the importance of visual results. As a pest control technician, a lot of the things that you do leave no visible trace. So for example, you do a foundation treatment. When you apply that treatment, it dries and that's it. You can't see it or smell it. The customers don't really even know that it's there. However, there are some parts of your job that have visual trace. They leave a visual effect. And those parts of your job are critically important. Now, I'm not saying that the other parts of your job are not important, but this one part of the job, which really comes down to dewebbing, that's what we're talking about here. It's taking down, getting rid of the cobwebs and things like that around the house. That part of your job is at a height, and it's a hyper important part of your job. The reason is because if another company was to launch a door-to-door sales campaign against us, those door-to-door reps are going to come to the door and they're going to point out these things that we can see. Hey, look, see these cobwebs, or you see this wasp nest? Hey, if you're with us, you switch over to my company and we'll take care of that for you. And the customers can't argue with that because, boom, they're paying Penguin all this money, and right here they've got a cobweb that they can see. It's proof. It's undeniable proof that we're not doing a good job. So because of that, we need to do a really good job with dewebbing. Also, when we go around and we do door-to-door sales, when we sell against competition that's leaving behind visual traces, we capitalize on that big time. Our sales reps point that out. And we tell people, hey, if you're with Penguin, we're going to take care of that for you. So we need to make good on that promise. For every single treatment that you do, you need to do a dewebbing service. And basically what you need to do is you need to take your time and go slow and do a really good inspection, and then just be really thorough and make sure you get all the cobwebs, all the wasp nests down. And this is where you really excel and do a good job. This is the main reason why our initial services, we schedule 1 hour for them, whereas regular services, we schedule about half of that. We want to give the technician more time to do a good job with dewebbing. Take his time and to make sure he doesn't miss anything. Also, from the office's perspective, we get far more complaints. That's one of the single greatest points of complaints when people call in and complain about their service. Hey, the technician was out here and there's a cobweb right here and he missed it. So do a good job. The other thing, when you're doing your dewebbing service, you want to be really careful and take your time so you don't break stuff. That pole, that telescopic pole, it extends out, and if you're not careful and you're not watching behind you, you can swing that pole and you can break things that the customers have set up on their patio or on their front porch. It's possible to break a window. And so you want to be thorough, but you want to take your time. And don't get into a rush. Also, you need to be able to manage the length of your telescopic pole. So if you don't need 10, 20 feet pulled out, then telescope it in. As you go, you're just constantly moving that thing in and out on its telescopic ability so that you don't have excess pull sticking out behind you. If you do, you run a greater risk of breaking things. And obviously, if we break things, then we're liable for it. On that note, as part of our core value of honesty. Also, honesty is not only a core value, it's also a core focus with our service. So we advertise honest pest control. If you ever do break something, you need to call the service manager and let him know. And then we need to call the company or the customer that we did the service for and let them know. So it's a really bad idea, and you will get terminated for it if you break something and then you just try to hide it and not tell them. If you break something, it's fine. Look, we'll fix it. We'll repair it. It doesn't matter what it is. We'll take care of it. Now, with that said, I don't want you to break something, so go slow and take your time and don't have that happen in the first place. But if it does, don't make the situation worse. Don't make a bad situation worse by trying to hide it and not telling anybody. So cover-ups don't work. Don't break stuff. Now, the other thing with dewebbing is if there's too much. So it's possible that you might go out on an initial service specifically, and you've got an hour to do that service, and there's just so many cobwebs that you can't get to them all. if that's the case, what you want to do is you want to communicate with the customer and let them know that I got a lot of the cobwebs down. There's too many that I can't get all of them here, but I'll get them on the next service and the next service. And every time we come, we'll just take more and more down, and it's a work in progress. And if the customer is okay with that, and they probably will be, then we'll just use that as our treatment plan. Now, if you do that, you want to note it on Gorilla Desk. Talk to the customer, let them know that they had too much dewebbing to do. I couldn't get to it in my allotted 1 hour initial service time, but the next time I'll be back, I'll do it again. You'll make that note on Gorilla Desk and put it in the top note so it's a permanent note until we get it done. And then the next time the tech goes back, he'll just carry on and he'll take down a little bit more, and maybe it might take 3 or 4 treatments. As a sales rep, this is something that you want to keep in your mind, that if there's too many cobwebs, you don't want to overextend us and go to a house that's just plastered with cobwebs and be like, oh yeah, the tech will get that down, no problem, we'll do that on your initial. So just be aware that if there's too many cobwebs, you might want to preface it and say, well, we schedule 1 hour for the initial service and the tech will do as much as he can in an hour, and if there's more than that, then he might have to come back. There's one other thing that may help you if you have to get into this situation, and it's the fact that a lot of spiders, especially orb weavers, spiders that spin a web and they just live there, a lot of these kinds of spiders will ingest their cobwebs, their silk, and then their body will recycle it and they'll use it again. Orb weavers do this, for example. And because of that, if we treat the cobwebs and then leave them there, it will have a greater control effect on the spiders than if we remove the cobwebs and then treat. However, from an aesthetic point of view, we usually don't do that simply because, for 2 reasons. First off, because the customers won't like it. And the second reason is because even though that is true and it's better control, we can still get good enough control by taking down the cobwebs first and then treating. Our products are good enough that even though it's better to treat the cobwebs and leave them and then take them down later, it's still good enough taking the cobwebs down and then retreating, or then treating and just going forward like that. But if there ever is a situation where people just have a ton of cobwebs, then you might want to explain to the customer that they have a really big infestation with spiders. There's a ton of them, and that you're going to leave some of the cobwebs up so that those spiders will re-ingest that cobweb, and then it will get better control over them. And then next time we come out, we'll take down the remaining cobwebs and then retreat. So that's just a fact, just a little tidbit about spiders and how they work. Now, if you're just doing a regular initial service and they've got a few cobwebs but it's not out of control, then you always want to deweb first. So you do your inspection while you're dewebbing and then treat afterwards. If you're going to deweb, you never apply liquid first. So your option is you can either go out, deweb, and then treat with liquid, or you can treat, leave the cobwebs where they are, and then come get them on the next trip 30 or 45 or 60 days later. But what you shouldn't do is treat with liquid and then come do your dewebbing after. That's obviously a bad idea because you just used a bunch of product that got all over these cobwebs, and then you just came around with your dewebber and wiped it all off, so it's counterproductive. Also with dewebbing, typically our telescopic poles are tall enough or long enough that you'll be able to get to even a 3-story building. You want to take down wasp nest. If there are wasp nests that there are wasp on, typically you can treat it with just a regular general insecticide like bifin or permethrin, and then go about your service and do the other stuff. And then when you come back 10 or 15, 20 minutes later, all those wasps will typically be dead. And so if you're worried about getting stung, that's one option that you can do. But you want to take down all those cobwebs. Also with, or not cobwebs, the wasp nest. Also with wasp nest, we take those with us when we leave. So it's bad service and it's against company policy to knock down their cobwebs and then leave them on their driveway or in their lawn. So if they've got a garbage and the customer doesn't mind you putting them in their garbage, that's fine. Or you can just put them in your truck and then take them home and then throw them away when you get to the dumpster back at the office. The bottom line, though, is that you have got to do a really good job. The importance of visual results is just critically important. It doesn't matter if you're doing an initial service or a regular service. Make sure that when you leave the house, there's no sign of cobwebs or wasp nest or anything like that. Also, one other thing. The whole house is important, but obviously the front porch and the patio are the most important, because people hang out at their patio, and if you leave a wasp nest anywhere, it's bad. But if you leave a wasp nest right in their backyard, right by their porch, by their barbecue, on their favorite chair where they sit all the time, that's horrible. The same thing goes for a wasp nest. So do a good job with dewebbing, do a good inspection, take your time. As a general rule of thumb, we take down all cobwebs unless they have just a major infestation, in which case you probably don't have time to get all the cobwebs down anyways. And secondly, there's so many spiders that it's a full-on infestation, so we may be better served to treat those cobwebs. You maybe take down half of the cobwebs, treat the rest, leave them there, let those spiders re-ingest that silk. It'll wipe out that spider population. And then the next treatment, we can come down and finish the job with dewebbing. But if you do that, again, you have to talk to the customer and let them know. You can't just do it and assume that they know, because they don't know that. You got to communicate to them. Ideally, if they're there, you can do it in person. If not, leave it on the invoice. Notes visible to client. And that's all I've got.